Good morning, third grade. It is a beautiful morning today. I've already heard the birds chirping outside, and I hope you had a wonderful spring break. I know we stayed home this year. I'm sure you did too. And we got a lot of organizing done and exercise, reading, baking, a lot of stuff. So I hope you had a good time and a good break, but I hope you didn't take a total break away from math, especially yesterday. Remember, your assignment for Mondays is to practice your multiplication facts, practice your math facts, do math games, anything that can help you when you're doing your actual work during the week. All right, well, we're gonna dive right in. And before spring break, we were talking about fractions, okay? So I know that I already kind of gave you a sneak peek into the parts of a fraction, but today we're going to officially learn the parts of a fraction and then also talk about equivalent fractions. So we're going to use some big words today, like numerator and denominator and equivalent, and we're going to find out what they mean and break it down for you. All right, so when you have a fraction, remember, a fraction is a part of one whole, okay? A part of one whole. So look on page 502. I want you to just have that open, okay, because we're going to look at it in a minute. So I have right here a one whole rectangle. Okay, I tried to divide it into even parts. I don't know if they're super even, but okay. So I have one, this one whole rectangle is divided into 4 pieces, okay? 4 pieces. And I have 1 out of the 4 pieces colored in red, okay? So there are 4 pieces total in my one whole rectangle, and 1 out of those pieces are colored in red, okay? So we're going to talk about the different parts of a fraction and what they stand for, what they represent. Okay, so first of all, I have 4 pieces in my whole rectangle. Okay, so that goes on the bottom, and that is called the denominator. Okay, I think these sound kind of like Transformers. I don't know. But it's called a denominator. Okay, that's how many pieces the whole object or the whole thing is divided into. Okay, 4. Okay, and then the numerator is how many out of those total pieces are colored in, eaten, whatever. Okay, so I have 1 out of 4 pieces colored in. Okay, so the top of the fraction is called the numerator. Okay, the bottom of the fraction is called the denominator. Okay, so this line right here, remember we said that we can say it a couple different ways, okay? So I can call this 1/4, okay? Or I can say this is 1 out of 4. When I see this line, I can say out of, okay? 1 out of 4, okay? There's 4 total pieces. I have 1 filled in. 1 out of 4 pieces are colored in, all right? Okay, or I can say 1 divided by 4, okay? That can be a division sign too, okay? So, but for our purposes today, we're gonna say out of, okay? So the numerator is out of the denominator. How many out of the whole, how many numbers are divided into? So 1 out of 4, the numerator is on the top, the denominator is on the bottom, okay? So let's say that together. Numerator, denominator. numerator, denominator. The numerator is on the top, the denominator is on the bottom. Okay, so the numerator is what is filled in, eaten, etc. Denominator is the total number of pieces. Okay, so let's look at our examples in our book. So turn to page 502 if you're not already there, and it says, what is a fraction? It says you can use a fraction to name equal parts of a whole. Okay, so let's look at this flag. There's a few flags that look like this, and they just have different colors, but they're divided into 3 equal pieces. Okay, this is the Nigerian flag. Okay, all right. The flag of Nigeria has 3 equal parts. What fraction of the flag is green? Okay, so there's 3 equal parts. Where are we going to put the number 3? On the bottom. It's the denominator, because that's how many pieces it's divided into. Okay, so the denominator is 3. And then how many parts out of 3 are green? 2. So 2 out of the 3 pieces are green. So 2 is the numerator. Okay, so 2 equal parts are green. There are 3 equal parts in all. Okay, so the denominator is how many there are in all. The numerator is how many out of the equal parts are green. Okay, so you say 2/3 of the flag is green. That's how you would say it. All right. Okay, so look under that, and we're going to talk about it. It says, what fraction of Nigeria's flag is not green? 1/3. 1/3 is not green because it's white. So 1 out of 3 pieces are not green. All right. Okay, let's look at number 2. It says, what fraction of each square is blue? Okay, how many of the squares in letter A are blue? 0, so 0 out of 2. How many are blue in letter B? 1 out of 2, so 1/2, or 1/2. And how many are shaded blue in letter C? 2/2. Okay, so let's talk about that last one for just 1 minute. Anytime the numerator and the denominator are the same, they equal 1 whole. Okay, because 2 out of 2 is 1 whole object, or 1 whole thing, or 1 whole number. Okay, sometimes you're going to need to do that in order to either add or subtract or multiply fractions. So anytime, let's say the number is, say something is divided into 1,234 pieces, and all of them are filled in. It still equals 1, because if all of the pieces that it's divided into are shaded or are filled in, it equals 1, because 1,234 over or out of 1,234 equals 1 whole object. Those are just really teeny tiny pieces, okay, but they're all filled in, so it equals 1. Anytime the numerator and the denominator are the same, it equals 1 whole. All right? All right. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is equivalent fractions. Okay, equivalent. So before we start talking about it, I want you to turn to that page. By the way, your homework for today is practice 503 odd, 503, practice odd. So you don't have to do check up on the top. you're going to do practice A, odd. So start with number 7 and go down to number 21. Okay, odd. All right, so let's look at page 504. There's 2 sandwiches down there, 2 sub sandwiches. Grinders, we call them in Rhode Island. You call them grinders in Massachusetts? I don't know. I'm from Rhode Island, so we call them grinders here. All right, so if you look at those 2 grinders, they are the same size, okay? Same size, but they are divided into different number of pieces, okay? They are both the same size, okay? So I know when we go to a restaurant and get grinders, we will say to them, we'll get, my son and I, because we both have celiac disease, we'll get 1 gluten-free grinder, and I'll say divide it into 2 pieces, 2 equal pieces, and I'll get one side and he'll get the other side, okay? But then for the other kids who don't have as much of an appetite, I'll say give them a grinder, and I'll say divide it into 4 pieces, okay? And then my husband and my other teenage son will get another grinder, and it'll be divided into 2 pieces, okay? Those 3 grinders are all the same size, but they're divided into different number of pieces. Now, what do you notice about those pieces? Look at the sandwiches, the grinders. Look at them. When you divide it into 2 pieces, are the pieces bigger or smaller than when you divide it into 6 pieces? Because one of those is divided into 6 pieces. Yeah, when you only divide it into 2 pieces, the pieces are bigger, okay? So you get more, all right? When you divide it into 6 pieces, the pieces are smaller. Now you might think to yourself, well, the number 2 is smaller than the number 6. But when you're talking about fractions, the bigger the denominator, the smaller the pieces, okay? Because you're taking the same whole number, the same whole thing, and dividing it into more pieces. So the pieces are going to be smaller, okay? So if you're hungry, you divide it into less pieces, all right? So fractions that name the same amount are called equivalent fractions, okay? So let's look at this for a minute. We're gonna call this pizza. I know we're talking about food a lot, okay? So we're gonna say this is pizza. Pizza. All right. Now talking about my family again, because we have a lot of people to feed in my family. My husband will call, let's say Papa Gino's. And Papa Gino's pizza is usually divided into 8 pieces. And he'll say, please divide it into 12 pieces, okay? Now, he's dividing it into 12 pieces so that the pieces are smaller, because we have some kids that don't have huge appetites, okay? So if a large pizza is divided into 8 pieces, or a large pizza is divided into 12 pieces, is the pizza itself the same size? Yes. You're not getting more for your money when you divide it into 12 pieces as opposed to 8 pieces, because they're the same size pizza, but you're getting more pieces, okay? So when you get more pieces, the pieces are going to be smaller, all right? So let's look at this. I have 2 pizzas here. Okay, let's pretend that these are 2 large pizzas, okay? This pizza is divided into 4 pieces. This pizza is divided into 8 pieces. But if you look at these eaten pieces, this pizza, 1 out of the 4 pieces has been eaten, okay? this pizza, 2 out of the 8 pieces have been eaten, but it's the same size. It's the same amount, okay? So if it is the same amount as a fraction, if it's the same amount, it takes up the same amount, it is called an equivalent fraction. They name the same amount, okay? So 1/4 equals, equivalent is a big word for equals. 1/4 equals 2/8. 1/4 equals 2/8. Okay, they are equivalent to each other. Okay, 1 out of 4 is the same as 2 out of 8. Okay, I'm going to show you a way that you know that something is equivalent. Okay, in order to make a fraction equivalent, you have to do the same thing to the top and the bottom to get the other fraction. Okay, so if I either multiply or divide, what do I need to do to 1 to get 2? I need to multiply it by 2, right? Okay, so that means I need to do the same thing to the bottom. 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. So if I multiply both the top and the bottom by 2, I get 2/8. All right? So an equivalent fraction just means a fraction that names the same amount. Okay, it may look different, but it names the same amount. Okay, so when you look at it, 1/4 equals 2/8. Now let's say I fill in another 4th, okay? And I also fill in another 1/8. Let's see if they are equivalent. So now I have 2/4 and I have 3/8. Is 2/4 equal to 3/8? Well, just by looking at the pizzas, I can tell that 2/4 is not the same as 3/8. It doesn't take up as much space. As many pieces are not missing, or as much pizza is not missing, okay? And also, look, if I multiply 2, what do I do to 2 to get 3? I can't multiply or divide. Okay, 4 times 2 is 8, but I can't do it to the top. So if you can't do the same thing to the top and the bottom, they are not equivalent. Okay, so what do I have to do to the 8ths, the pizza divided into 8ths, in order to make it equivalent? I need to fill one more in, don't I? And now I have 4/8, because remember, that line right there means out of. So I have 4 out of 8 pieces filled in. So is 2/4 the same as 4/8? Is it equivalent? Yes. Now what do I do to 2/4 in order to get 4/8? I multiply both of them by 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So I have an equivalent fraction. They are equal to each other. 2/4 is the same as 4/8. All right? Got it? All right. So remember, equivalent is just a fancy name for equal. Okay? And it means that it takes up the same amount. All right. So for Wednesday's work, or you can do it today at the same time as you do Tuesdays. It's up to you. Oops, sorry. For Wednesday's work, you're going to do practice 505 odd. So that means A, B, and mixed review and test prep. Okay, they are all part of practice. All right. Okay. Please make sure you have your parents send me Tuesday and Wednesday's homework together before tomorrow night, before Wednesday night. All right, I will see you in a few minutes. Bye.